Welcome back to the SQL Server Series. In our last video, we learned how to delete indexes, tables, and databases. Now, we are going to learn how to alter a table. This is another statement that can be used to make changes to a table. However, instead of deleting the table, we will just be simply modifying the table. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the SQL Server Series. This video is brought to you in reference to Joe Marach's SQL Server 2016 for developers. If you're interested in purchasing a copy of this book, then please follow the link in the description below. You use the alter table statement to modify an existing table. You can use this statement to add columns or constraints, drop columns or constraints, or change the definition of an existing column, including the column's data type. Before the SQL Server commits to those changes in the data type of a column, it checks to be sure that no data will be lost, and if so, the operation isn't performed. Using the alter table statement, you can add a column that doesn't allow null values only if you specify a default value for that column. When using the alter table statement, you can't add column constraints. You can only change the data type or the null or not null attribute of an existing column. When you add a table constraint, SQL Server automatically checks that the existing data meets the constraint. If you want to prevent it from doing that, you can include the with no check keywords in the alter statement. So let's take a look at the basic syntax for the alter table statement. So I'm going to open up some comment lines here, and this is going to be the basic syntax for the alter table statement. And then that syntax is going to be the alter table, and then it's going to be table name. And then you could include your with check or with no check options. And then in some squiggly lines, or some squiggly brackets, that's what I like to call them, you can add a new column, right? And then you can add new column name that you specify the data type, and then you give the column attributes. So like you learned in the previous video where when we created a table and we added a new column, we gave it a data type and we gave it attributes as well. And so now in here we could also, when altering a table, you can do multiple things. You can add the new column, and then you could also drop a column. You can also alter a column, which means you would take the column name and you would give it a new data type. And then you can alter its column attributes. So it could be null or not null. Another one you can do is you can add a constraint to it. So let's say we wanted to add in a constraint. We can add a constraint there, and we can name that new underscore constraint definition name, right? Another thing you can do is you can also drop a constraint, and then you specify the constraint name. So that's our syntax. When altering a table, these are the different options that you can use and that you can choose from. So let's take a look at some examples of an alter statement. Here's a statement that adds a new column. So I'll just say this is a statement that adds a new column. And then I'm going to say alter table. And then I'm going to specify the vendors table. And I'm going to add my new column. So it's going to be add last tran date. And then I'm going to specify my data type. So my data type is going to be small date time. And then my column attribute is going to be null, meaning that it can accept null values. And the data type is small date time. So it's only going to be able to accept small date time values. And then the name is going to be last tran date. So if I were to run this, and as a matter of fact, let's just use our use statement. If I were to run this, this would add in that new column, right? So let's say if I wanted to select all from ap.dbo.vendors, Now you can see over here on the right side, last tran date has been added and it can be null. Now, notice everything is null here because we did not do an insert on last tran date, so we didn't put any data in there. And we said that it can accept null, so it just created itself and assigned a null value to every record in the table. Let's take a look at another example. Let's take a look at a statement that drops a column. So first I'll use AP, right? And then I'll say drop column, and then I'll drop that same column I just created, last tran date. And if I run that, I'll use AP, and then I'll alter table vendors, and then I'll drop column last tran date, and then that's going to get rid of it. So if we were to select all into ap.dbo.vendors, then we'd see that column now has disappeared. Another example here is a statement that adds a new constraint. So let's add a new constraint in here. Let's alter our table vendors. We're going to use AP, which we already are using. Let's alter table vendors, and then let's add a check. And then we're going to say where the invoice total is greater than or equal to 1. That's a check we're going to add. So this is adding a new constraint. So anything we insert into vendors table has to have an invoice total greater than or equal to 1. That's the constraint that we're going to be adding in. So if we were to add that in, and oops, invalid column name invoice total. I think I'm altering the wrong table here. I'm supposed to be altering the invoices table with check. I'm sorry, with no check. And then I'll add a check. And so that's how you add a new constraint. If you look at our syntax up here, the alter table has to come with a check or with a no check, if you're going to be adding a constraint. So let's take a look at another example. This is a statement that adds a foreign key constraint. And I'm just going to do an alter table invoice line items with check. And then I'm going to add a foreign key. This one's going to be account number. And then my references of where this foreign key is coming from is going to be from the GL accounts table. And then that's going to be the account number column. So if I run that, that's going to add that in there. So if I were to select all from invoice line items, now as you can see, we added a foreign key account number. It's in here. It's now a foreign key, and it's referencing the GL accounts table account number foreign key. So if I were to select all from GL accounts, now you see that the account number in here is the foreign key. So by adding that check in, let's say we wanted to do an inner join on GL accounts, and we did that on L.account number equal to GL.account number, invoice line items account number equal to GL accounts account number, and we ran that query. Now you can see that there's an inner join on the account numbers here, and so both data from both tables based on that primary key, that foreign key that we added, they're able to join together successfully. Now, one more example. This is going to be a statement that changes the data type column. So let's see, I'll do an alter table, invoice line items. And then I'm going to do an alter column. And this is going to be the invoice line item description column. And then I'm going to change its data type. And it's going to be a variable character that's capable of storing 200 characters. Now, let's say right now it was capable of only storing 50. Well, all this does is extend it out. And if it was already previously a variable character, then it will remain a variable character. But all this is doing is making it so that way we can store up to 200 characters in there. So some quick examples on the basic syntax of how to alter a table. You can alter the table name with a check or with no check. In this case, if you're adding a new constraint and it doesn't have a check, then you can add a check. In other cases, you don't need to specify it at all if you're just adding in a new column, or you're dropping a column, or you're altering a column's data type. But anything that has to do with a check or a constraint or a foreign key, then you should include that in here with check or with no check. So that is all for this video. In our next video, we're going to be learning how to work with sequences. So if you're interested in our next video, you know what to do. Head on over to database-tutorials.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you'll be able to check out all of our content and all of our upcoming videos. See you next time.